Obviously, this is one of the most consequential events in Iran since the revolution in '79, and the death of Ayatollah Khamenei is basically going to plunge the country now into a period of great uncertainty.
There's plenty happening politically, diplomatically. The US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, we know, is due to hold a call with G7 leaders later today. And we know, of course, that British planes have been in the skies over the region protecting British national interests, according to Keir Starmer. Times Radio's political correspondent Terry Stiasny is with us now in the studio. Hello to you, Terry.
Hi, Carolyn.
So give us a rundown then, a sense of what is happening domestically and diplomatically as well.
Well, yes, we know that there's going to be a call with Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, with G7 leaders at some point today. And it's quite interesting because there has been a bit of a difference of opinion, really, even among the G7. So we know that yesterday Keir Starmer had conversations with Emmanuel Macron, with Friedrich Merz. They put out a statement as what's called the E3, who have been working on Iran policy together and stressing that they hadn't been involved in the strikes and wanting kind of a de-escalation of the situation. I mean, Emmanuel Macron's statement yesterday is sort of in France's own right was quite strong. He was saying that the outbreak of war carried grave consequences for international peace and security, and he was the one pushing for a UN Security Council meeting. But then if you look at some other members of the G7, Canada, for instance, Mark Carney was much more supportive and said that Canada supported the US action. So, there's clearly sort of a bit of diversity in the different positions there, and that will no doubt come up in the calls today.
And for those of us, so many of us who followed what happened in Iraq, the invasion there in 2003 and the aftermath, but before that, the failure to get a UN Security Council resolution that Tony Blair was seeking so much, just didn't get that final resolution. Presumably thoughts of that are hanging in the air.
Well, I think certainly when you look at the UK's response and what we heard from the Prime Minister yesterday, in that he was saying that the Iranian regime was abhorrent, but stressing that Britain wasn't involved in the strikes. And we know that there had been a disagreement between him and Donald Trump over whether UK kind of facilities could be used to that end, though he did say that British planes were in the air to defend allies, people and interests. And also, he was very clear that Iran should never be allowed to develop nuclear weapons. So that is certainly something that has been, on Britain's mind, the legal position there.
Terry, thanks very much.
Well, let's now consider, I suppose, what goes on from here in Iran. We know now that the man who ruled Iran for nearly 40 years, Ayatollah Khamenei, has been killed in these US strikes. Ali Safavi is a member of the Iranian parliament in exile who described to us the reaction in Tehran.
But as far as the mood in the street is concerned, I have seen many video clips of Iranians very jubilant coming out onto the streets and chanting death to Khamenei, expressing joy over the elimination of one of the most criminal tyrants of modern history, whose hand was stained with the blood of tens of thousands of Iranians in Iran. I don't think anybody shed any tears over him, at least in Iran.
Well, let's now speak to Matthew Campbell, foreign features editor for The Times and The Sunday Times. Matthew, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Is it clear to you when we will be able to determine whether the gamble here, in terms of the strikes that have been carried out by Israel and the US, whether the gamble has paid off? Can we say that this morning?
Well, Iran has a very opaque political system, and it'll be very interesting, fascinating to see how this plays out in the coming days. Obviously, this is one of the most consequential events in Iran since the revolution in '79, and the death of Ayatollah Khamenei is basically going to plunge the country now into a period of great uncertainty. There's talk of a three-man interim council. There's also talk of the possibility of the Ayatollah's son, Mujtaba, taking over. His wife was one of the people killed in the attack. along with other senior members of the regime, including the defense minister, I believe, which was carried out after intelligence provided by the CIA apparently showed that the Ayatollah would be in a meeting with senior officials in his compound. I mean, what he was doing there, it's hard to imagine. I mean, this was a much advertised intervention, and you would have imagined him to be hiding out underground in some fortified bunker, as he apparently did last time in June when the previous attacks occurred.
In terms of that sort of idea of succession planning, Matthew, it's reported in the Sunday Times this morning that actually the Ayatollah had been considering what might happen in the era after him for quite some time. Are we seeing that plan in this transitional government that you've just outlined? Is that part of what the Ayatollah had envisioned?
Well, again, it's hard to know exactly, given the Iranian political system and the opacity of it. I think the thing to make clear is that this is obviously a turning point in Iranian history, but it could go in a number of directions. There have indeed been clips of people celebrating in the streets, but also there are clips of showing people preparing to mourn him, and you might expect it in some ways to encourage possibly retaliation. Hardliners in the regime will be no doubt pondering that, or it could indeed help to encourage the more moderate factions, perhaps. We really don't know at this stage how this is going to play out.
Do we consider airstrikes by Israel and the US to be enough by way of backup and support for the people of Iran who wish to see change at this point? President Trump is calling on them to rise up, really, and to take their country back. I wonder if the support he's offering is enough to facilitate that.
Yeah, I think the conventional wisdom has always been that attacks, airstrikes by themselves have never been enough, really, to bring about regime change, and that you really need boots on the ground. And that's turned out badly in the past in places like Iraq, for instance, where things went badly wrong. In this case, obviously, we're going to see a change in the top leadership. There will be a new Ayatollah, perhaps. But are we going to see a change in the regime? It's not Venezuela. This is a deeply ideological regime. It's deeply entrenched ideologically, and it's hard to imagine the country suddenly abandoning some of its deeply held and long-held policies. It's hard to tell at this stage, I would say. But in coming days, we may get some hints of which direction it's going in.
Matthew, we'll look out for your reporting and analysis in the days ahead as well. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Thanks.